white and bluegrass.
Kentucky's Department of Education is certifying its compliance with new federal guidelines on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Commissioner Robbie Fletcher told district leaders in an email that the state has certified its compliance with a federal order which threatens to pull funding from states that keep DEI initiatives. 2 weeks ago, the Trump administration told schools to end DEI programs or risk losing federal funding. Kentucky education officials have clarified to say that no programs have yet been cut since that order. Fletcher called the directive not without issues, quote, but says he is confident Kentucky can still meet the needs of every student through its commitment to opportunity and access. The commissioner said in a statement that he is committed to making sure every student has access to a high-quality education, which means providing all students with the resources they need to thrive. He went on to say that schools must be places where every child feels supported and challenged to reach their full potential, and the department will work to build an education system that is responsive and relentlessly focused on student success. Senator Thomas, I'll start with you here. Just to what extent has DEI been in K-12? A lot of the debate we saw in the General Assembly this year was focused on the post-secondary education level. What about in K-12?
Well, Bodie, let me begin by saying I want to push back on the Trump administration. Okay, his letter is not about fairness at all. Okay, it's about coercion. What the current administration wants to do, Bodie, is try to inject how schools should teach their kids, what books they should read, what lesson plans they should be given. This is about propagandizing education in K-12 classrooms. Okay, when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, we're trying to talk about having all students achieve the best that they can. The assumption, Bodie, and I'm going to be quick, the assumption that all kids start from the same place is not true. Achievement gaps and ratings gaps, Bodie, begin in kindergarten. There are real gaps there. And what schools try to do is close those gaps through trying to be inclusive, trying to be equitable in reaching all students where they are and trying to raise them and improve their lot.
Well, Senator Deneen, let's bring you in here. Just your thoughts on Senator Thomas's comments, and just to add to that, is risking federal funding the best way to approach following a political directive?
Well, first of all, as a former elementary principal myself, I want to disagree with Senator Thomas on this point, in that in some way kindergartners or other elementary students or any students are discriminated against in any way or lessened in any way when they come into the school system. They all come from different levels, and educators know that, and they meet them where they are and they take them to the next level. And so when it comes to the DEI initiative that the executive order has pushed down into the states, I think our Commissioner of Education has done a great job in understanding that those matrices that really rely on and curtail school funding, you cannot use any type of discriminatory practices when those matrices are used. And so it becomes really an issue that Senator Thomas's arguments were made, and I'm confident they were made when court cases went to the Supreme Court in recent years, and they have been overturned affirmative action policies that deal with strictly race or another gender or another religion. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Title VI of that prohibits any type of funding for anybody that discriminates against any of those categories. So DEI sometimes comes in as redundant over top of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Title VI. And so the Supreme Court has agreed to these in court cases and said that you can't do those things. And so I believe Commissioner Fletcher is doing all he can to ensure that $1 billion of federal funding still remains and comes to Kentucky, because that pays for a lot of our lunch programs, our feeding programs for students. But to ensure that goes on, we must follow the rules, we must follow the law, and we must follow those Supreme Court decisions. And so whether or not it's this president or another president, I think you have to look at what's constitutional. And some of these policies and some of these approaches have been heralded as unconstitutional in relation to those laws.
Senator Thomas, any response you have to that?
Yes, I do. Let me tell you where
We got about a minute.
Senator Deneen and I do agree. And that is, I think Commissioner Fletcher is doing a great job as commissioner. And in this instance, trying to work with the federal administration and President Trump's coercive order and save that $1 billion to be used for our schools. Because if you listen to him, he says, we're going to work with every student. We're going to try to meet every student's needs and try to move every student forward in schools. And so he recognizes that all children are not equal when they come into the schools. But he's going to do it in such a way that tries to help every student in terms of where their problems are, where their gaps are, and try to help them succeed in schools. And I applaud Commissioner Fletcher with having that attitude.
And I think both of us agree on the fact that we all want what's best for Kentucky students. We all want to see our students thrive and do well. And I think both of us and the General Assembly are committed to having those conversations in the upcoming interim session and in the upcoming budget session to continue those conversations to ensure every student's needs are met.
Alrighty, guys, we're going to have to go ahead and leave it right there.